Imagine building one of the biggest fashion empires on earth, and still walking down the street looking like an ordinary man. No fashion degree, no wealthy family. He didn't even finish school. Yet Amancio Ortega would eventually change the way the world buys clothes. This is the story of the man behind Zara. Amancio Ortega was born in 1936 in Bustongo de Arbas, a tiny village in northern Spain. His father, Antonio Ortega, worked on the railway. His mother, Josefa Gaona, helped support the household. Money was tight, and Amancio understood that very early. One story from his childhood stayed with him for decades. Amancio reportedly heard a shopkeeper tell his mother that the family could no longer buy groceries on credit. He saw her humiliation, and something changed inside him. He decided he wanted to help his family. Amancio didn't have the luxury of waiting years to start earning money. As a young teenager, he left formal education and went to work, not because he had stopped dreaming, because his family needed help. At around 14, Amancio entered the clothing business at the very bottom. He worked as an errand boy for a shirt maker in A Coruña. He carried packages, made deliveries, and watched. Especially, he watched. Later, he worked at a clothing store called La Maja, and Amancio wasn't simply earning a salary. He was studying an industry, how much fabric cost, how clothes were made, what customers wanted, and most importantly, where money was being wasted. It was also in the clothing business that Amancio met Rosalia Mera. She would become his wife and an essential partner in the beginning of his entrepreneurial journey. Together, they started thinking beyond simply working for someone else. By 1963, Amancio was ready. He started his own clothing manufacturing business, Confecciones GOA. The name came from his initials reversed, Amancio Ortega Gaona, GOA. The operation was modest. One of its important early products was quilted bathrobes. But behind that little workshop, Amancio was beginning to develop an idea that would eventually disrupt the entire fashion industry. Years inside the clothing business had taught Amancio something important. Fashion companies spend months deciding what people should wear. Amancio wanted to do the opposite. Watch the customer, learn what they actually wanted, and respond. The traditional fashion industry was slow. Designers designed, factories manufactured, distributors distributed, stores waited. Amancio saw all those delays and asked a simple question. What if we could control more of the process ourselves? Then on May 9th, 1975, Amancio Ortega opened the first Zara store on Juan Flores Street in A Coruña. After years of making clothes for other businesses, he finally had direct access to the most important person in fashion, the customer. And here's something most people don't know. The store wasn't originally supposed to be called Zara. Amancio reportedly wanted to call it Zorba, inspired by Zorba the Greek. But another nearby business already used the name, so the letters were rearranged, and Zara was born. Amancio understood another problem. People wanted fashionable clothing, but many couldn't afford luxury prices. Zara offered styles inspired by current fashion, at prices ordinary customers could actually reach, and people responded. But Zara's real advantage wasn't cheap clothing, it was information. Store managers paid attention to what customers bought, what they ignored, and what they asked for. That information traveled back through the company. Instead of guessing what people might want months later, Zara listened to what they wanted now. This changed everything. Traditional fashion companies could take months to move from an idea to a store. Zara built its system around speed. Design, produce, deliver, learn, then do it again. Faster. The idea worked. One Zara became several. Then several became dozens. By the early 1980s, Zara was expanding across Spain. But Amancio wasn't interested in building just another Spanish clothing chain. He was quietly building a system that could work almost anywhere. By 1985, Zara was no longer a small experiment. Amancio needed a structure capable of supporting something much bigger. So he created Inditex, Industria de Diseño Textil. Zara now had a machine behind it, and that machine was ready to leave Spain. Then came the real test. Could an idea built in northern Spain work somewhere else? In 1988, Zara opened its first international store in Porto, Portugal. It worked, so Amancio went bigger. 1 year later, Amancio took an enormous leap. New York City. Zara opened on Lexington Avenue in Manhattan. A company created by a school dropout from northern Spain had crossed the Atlantic. Then came an even more symbolic challenge: Paris, one of the fashion capitals of the world. In 1990, Zara arrived there too. Amancio wasn't simply selling Spanish clothing anymore. He was competing in fashion's own backyard. But Amancio understood something else. Not every customer wanted Zara. Different people wanted different styles. So in 1991, Inditex launched Pull and Bear, and that same year, it acquired a major stake in Massimo Dutti. The company was becoming much bigger than one brand. Customers saw beautiful stores, but Amancio knew the real advantage was hidden behind them. Information, factories, distribution, speed. While competitors tried to predict fashion far into the future, Zara kept listening, producing, and reacting. The expansion didn't stop. Bershka arrived in 1998. Stradivarius joined the group in 1999. Different brands, different customers, but underneath them, the same obsession with understanding what people wanted and responding quickly. Then came May 2001, Inditex went public. The company was valued at around 9 billion euros, and suddenly, the quiet boy who had left school to help his family was one of the richest men in Spain. But Amancio Ortega didn't start behaving like a billionaire. In fact, he became famous for doing almost the opposite. Then, in 2011, Amancio made another unusual decision. He stepped down as chairman of Inditex. Pablo Isla took over. After spending decades building the company, Amancio was finally willing to step away from the driver's seat. Because great founders eventually have to build something that can survive without them. By now, Amancio Ortega was extraordinarily wealthy, but fame never seemed to interest him. He avoided interviews, avoided celebrity, and became famous for his simple, private lifestyle. The man who helped change global fashion didn't seem interested in becoming a fashion celebrity himself. Amancio didn't simply spend the fortune Zara created. Through his investment company, Ponte Gadea, he poured enormous amounts of money into real estate. Offices, retail properties, landmark buildings. The boy who once worried about groceries was now investing on a completely different scale. His fortune also created another opportunity to give back. Through the Amancio Ortega Foundation, created in 2001, major resources have gone toward education and social welfare. Because after building one of the world's biggest companies, he could now use part of that success to create opportunities for others. 50 years after the first Zara opened, the little store from A Coruña had become a global name, and Inditex had grown far beyond anything that teenage errand boy could have imagined. But perhaps the most remarkable part was where it all started. Not with money, not with a university degree, with observation. Amancio Ortega's story reminds us that success doesn't always begin with a brilliant invention. Sometimes it begins with paying attention. He left school young, started as an errand boy, carried packages, learned from tailors, watched customers, and spent years understanding an industry before trying to change it. When others predicted what people might want, he listened to what they wanted now. When others moved slowly, he moved faster. And when success finally arrived, he kept working quietly. So if you're starting from the bottom today, remember Amancio Ortega. You don't need to know everything. Start by learning. Pay attention, solve real problems, and keep improving. Because sometimes the person carrying the packages today can build the company everyone knows tomorrow. Thank you for watching. Tell us in the comments whose story we should tell next. We'll see you in the next success story. And hopefully, one day, it'll be yours.